grouping channels for me is very important, and not just in Ableton, in any digital audio workstation, and even when mixing analog and routing and a mixing desk. Grouping is a powerful tool if you're accustomed to using it. So what I usually do with all of my groups is actually grouping elements that have the same purpose in the song. And as I'm doing electronic music, usually my drums contain a lot of tracks, just like this. A lot of loops, a lot of tracks, a lot of hi-hats, a lot of elements that might have been changed inside. But what I want in the end is for all of these elements to be routed through this one track, which I can then later use to control the volume or to apply processing that's going to be applied to everything in that group. Now, sometimes that's for the purpose of, arrangement, some effects that are going to be making some, gradual changes like filtering, reverberation, something like that. But a lot of the times I use that for the purpose of processing. So a lot of the times I want to process the whole group together. And why would I do that? Well, let's say for some things like equalization, I might want to consider this entire group of tracks which make up all of my drums except for the kick drum. I might want to process those as they were one. So sometimes when looking at this from a macro view, these drums are just one element in this entire song. Kick aside that I have a lot of tracks in there, a lot of separate elements. They mostly play together most of the time. You can see that from right there. So they do serve one purpose. So if at some point I wanted to just fix the relation of that group of channels to everything else, the volume, I could use this fader right here on the group track, since everything in the group is routed through the group. Now, if I wanted to do some EQing to that group, I could do it on that track as well. If I actually wanted to fix the spectral balance of this entire group of drums compared to everything else. So let's say I feel my drums and I say, okay, I'm missing some frequencies there. I'm missing a part of that frequency spectrum to be louder. So let's play those drums, see what they sound like. I could actually place an EQ, just a simple EQ right there. And I can see that right away, maybe I have some low frequencies I didn't account for in some of those drums. I could, slice those away. So let's say removing unnecessary frequencies, so doing some reductive EQ on them, or maybe boosting a certain part of the spectrum that I don't feel is present enough in the entire song. Now, for that purpose, I would have to play the entire song and then do any equalization I want, because the purpose of this equalization I'm doing now is for the element to actually sit better with other elements. So what better way to see if it fits with everything else if I actually play it with everything else and then adjust the EQ. Now, as you have seen, I have added this EQ. I have boosted this middle part of the frequencies close to 1K, so in between 1 and 2K, 1.5 kilohertz. And I have lowered the gain on the output of this EQ as to the help of that level staging, that gain staging, where I can actually just disable this EQ and see if the change I made is actually better. Now, a really good way to see if something sounds good once it's done is to actually bypass it, because the A-B comparison, like right away comparison, where the sound actually just changes in a split second, is the best way to see the difference and actually decide if it's better or not. Now, as you can see, I might group things to make it easier for me to mix them. So I might actually group these two bass lines and this kick drum together in one group, calling that low, as in low frequencies. So all of these have the low frequencies, and basically almost nothing else in the entire song should have any low frequencies covering up those. So let's say anything below 100 Hertz. And this way I know that these are the low frequencies and maybe I want to treat them together. So maybe I would like to place a compressor on top of those and just, compress those low frequencies. So compress all the elements that play any role in the low frequency part of the spectrum. Now, this makes it much easier for me to mix this song. Now that I have 5 faders, and presuming that I've mixed all the elements right, even if they're not, presuming I wanted to mix this song a bit better, if I felt that I have too much bass, too much low end, as we have seen in the analyzer I've shown you in the beginning, that I did. Okay, so when I play it, so what I could do, if I thought that was the case, I could just as easily pull this entire group down, or place an EQ on that entire group of low frequencies, just like that, and just pull down on all the low frequencies. So maybe I wanted to keep the upper frequencies of all of those instruments, meaning the mid frequencies of the bass and mid frequencies of the kick drum, since they do have it. I would like to keep those at the same volume, but I would like to pull down on the actual bass frequency, so everything, let's say, below 200 hertz. So I could do that without affecting anything else, without affecting any of the other elements in the production, just doing this. And why this is easier? Well, it's just 5 elements that I need to mix together. Okay, so making any change would just pull down all the leads or pull down all the effects, pull up all of the drums, because at the end of the day, once you're done with mixing, you say, okay, I've mixed everything properly, everything sits fine, and then tomorrow you come back and you say, okay, everything's good, it's just the drums that I need to pull up. So what I could do, of course, is mark all these tracks that are in the drums and pull all of them together upwards like 1 dB. But then the processing, if I wanted to process each one of those with the same process, it would require quite a lot of time and CPU processing, also CPU power, because CPU is going to be used for each one of those channels. This way I'm using one EQ or one dynamics processor to treat all of them. And plus, if you're doing anything dynamic to these elements that are in these groups together, the dynamics would vary wildly when processing all of them together or processing just one of the elements. When you're processing those with dynamic effects, let's say a compressor, everything being louder than the threshold on that compressor is going to affect the compressor's work, meaning that it's not the same if I compress all of these elements together or if I compress each one of them separately. I might want to compress each one of them separately for a different reason, but if I wanted to achieve a certain effect on these drums, let's say like this. So, just like that. What I've added right here is some parallel compression. So I have listened to the wet signal just coming out of this compressor, and I really compressed it really hard, really smashed it, and now I'm adding a bit of that smash signal into this original. I can also feel some difference in volume once I engage this compressor, so I just pull down on the output gain. So let's try that now. Now they sound better as is. Right now they sound better alone. They're more full. Applied some parallel compression that brought out all the low level information. But let's see what it sounds like, amongst all of the other elements in the song. it just makes the song much fuller, and that's the way to go. For me, this is much easier. Then in the end, if I catch an element, with my ear that is not doing what it's supposed to do, I will get in eventually into the group and do something. But at this stage where I'm grouping the channels, I'm grouping them for ease of doing any macro change, just like the one you heard. So volume of the lows compared to the midliners, to this, and the volume of the leads, of the FX, of the drums. So I'm actually, trying to get that macro feel, make all the elements sit well together, because it's easy to lose track of that once you're mixing, everything, every single element by itself. This really helps to get that overall balance of all the elements just right.